Make mine the P-Funk. I want my funk uncut. Yeah, make my funk the P-Funk. I want to get funked up. I want the P-Funk. Yeah. Make mine the P. Get funked up.
Funk is fun, and it's a state of mind, but it's also all the ramifications of that state of mind. You know, once you do the best you can, funk it.
Once a funk upon a time, when humankind had fallen out of rhythm with the cosmic stroke, there came, from the farthest reaches of the chocolate Milky Way, a key that would free the minds and asses of generations. For centuries, this key remained among the secrets of the pyramids, until the arrival in the 70s of a band of freaked-out Afro-Knots, endowed with true groove. Intergalactic passports gave their name as Parliament Funkadelic. Now, we needs to duck back into the 50s to see how all this got started. So, excuse me while I put my do-rag on. In this funky tale, all roads lead back to New Jersey. In 1956, George Clinton got the funk ball rolling and knew it when he started a doo-wop group called the Parliaments. Later, in the town of Plainfield, New Jersey, the Parliaments tightened up their thing while hanging at a barbershop where George did hair.
Everything went on at the barbershop. On Saturday was the meeting place for most of the grown-ups, you know. Everybody be there lying and telling jokes. It was just one big place in town where it was hip to hang out at.
It was all about the barbershop, you see. You go in like this. And you come out like this. Fried, dyed, and laid to the side.
If you hung out at the barbershop, you was automatically cool. You know, you had a process, you was cool.
George had them big old hocks. And he could put that finger wave in your hair, boy, and he could put a wave in there that will, especially this first wave, boy, it would probably stay for a week and a half.
I like doing hair just like I did music, so I basically would, if I didn't have nothing to do, I would go ahead and do your hair.
Inside this particular barbershop, they wasn't just cooking up bad hairdos, but some bad-ass harmony to boot.
Now he's sitting there with his head hung low, tears falling from his eyes on the floor, he's crying, oh, Willie.
When he formed his group, the Parliaments, they were more of a doo-wop type of a group.
The doo-wop scene was like a competitive type of thing. You know, who had the best do, who had the prettiest suit on, and who did the funkiest steps.
In those days, the Motown sound was the sound.
We got the address off the label one day and decided to give them a call for an audition, and they told us to come down. And that was, that initiated that first trip
September
to Detroit.
22nd, 1962.
We went in there, we auditioned, and they told us we sounded too much like either the Temptations or the Four Tops.
The Parliaments finally did land a record deal with the small Detroit label, Rebel-Lot Records. After 5 years in 1967, they had a hit, I Wanna Testify.
I just wanna testify what your love has done for me. Everybody sing.
Our first hit record, 1967, song went up the chart, zoom. Hey, and now we got to get this thing together where we got this gig at the Apollo Theater.
We was headlining over top of the OJs, the Impressions, a whole lot of big stars, and they was all wondering how do we become the headliners of the show.
Sure been delicious to me.
We got out there and screwed up so bad.
We hadn't been the type of group that did a lot of rehearsing, but we rehearsed like everything for the Apollo Theater, for our big chance.
I won't say totally unprepared, but we were, number one, we were nowhere near as professional as we thought we were.
We came out on it messing up like the Five Stooges or something, all bumping into each other and stuff. And boy, I started getting nervous and everything then.
And when the pickup's supposed to come, the music went. Hey, it went violins and stuff, man. It was nothing happening, boy. And I was trying to sing. I remember looking up at all them people.
So it sounded like an amateur show, you know, but we kept right on singing. We almost got away with it on the humor side because it looked like we was goofing.
When you hear a lot of that early stuff, you just go, why did you ever attempt to try to fit in? Y'all were always going that way. Just give up. And eventually they were forced to give up.
We couldn't keep our ties alike, couldn't keep the suits clean. Hair was always undone. You realize the reality of that was really silly, especially when the hippies had just hit the scene and it was hip to be, you know, funky looking. We didn't have no whole bunch of hit records to do it anyway, so it was natural for us to become hippies.
What is so? I don't know. Oh no, oh no.
So is the ring around your bathtub. Lie on, baby. We will not harm you. Oh, God. Wow!
Back in 1968, Parliament was under contract to Revelot Records. And lo and behold, there were some problems over at Revelot, and the name was tied up. So while the name was tied up, the fellas couldn't do an awful lot. So that's when George had come over and said, Arm, why don't we put a whole thing together and call it Funkadelic? And I thought, wow, Funkadelic. I mean, you know, this is a word that was very close to other words. And I thought, boy, this is going to be a shocker.
Was breaking loose. Riots in the hood, Vietnam, LSD. The Parliament's transmutrified into a wild-ass rock group with 2 record deals under 2 different names, Parliament and Funkadelic. George was getting his hustle down, though at the time a lot of people just thought the nigga was crazy.
Things were changing by leaps and bounds musically, and you could try entirely new things. And George was part of this scene. In Detroit, it was an average night to go and hear the Stooges, Parliament Funkadelic, and the MC5 on the same show. And we were all into the free jazz movement, the musics of Ornette Coleman and Sun Ra, and experimenting with guitar sounds and trying different beats and pushing the rhythm farther.
Most of the black groups that were coming out at the time were pretty much rhythm and blues oriented, gospel oriented, jazz oriented. And what happened with Funkadelic, we leaned towards rock.
You don't drink what I drink. You don't smoke what I smoke. You don't think like I think. You don't joke like I joke.
We also dug the hell out of Jimi Hendrix.
Back at that time, if your amplifier squealed, that was considered, man, your amp's squealing, you gotta do something. So Jimmy got up there and started. And I'm like, oh my God, he's controlling this mess.
One of the really significant gigs we did during that time was with Vanilla Fudge. What happened was the guys that was driving our equipment had an accident, so they say. When the equipment didn't show, Vanilla Fudge, these guys were like superstars, right? But they were real nice and agreed to let us use their equipment as long as we didn't tear it up, because, us being black, we was known to tear up, and they had the state-of-the-art stuff. None of us had ever played on any equipment like that. It was so large, it was ridiculous. That was the night that we found our niche.
George had envisioned a musical wall that was loud and that was backed by the strongest amplifiers in the world. The plan was to take the funk and rocketize it and put it out to the masses.
We found that the vibe was more important than them actually hearing us. Some people, we can't hear you, we can't hear you. And we'd be like to argue amongst ourselves. Man, we can't hear ourselves. That ain't important right now. And that was pretty deep for a group that specialized in singing. But I knew then it was about making faces, jamming, having a good time.
The first time I heard Parliament Funkadelic play, I wasn't shocked by the infusion of rock into their music. It seemed like a natural progression to me because what they did, what they were doing, the Rolling Stones were trying to do. What they were doing, Eric Clapton and people were trying to do, although they would, Eric and those people were trying to do it from more of a blues base. And Parliament Funkadelic didn't have to do that. They came from that. So they were naturally taking it somewhere else, further. Theirs was really a bringing together of rock and funk. And the feel was exactly right.
Maggie Brain, a brother crying his soul out. Okay. Maggie Brain is a state of mind. All right. To get you out of the heroin mood. Okay. The way I understand it, George put Eddie in the middle of a whole bunch of amps, just surrounded him with amps and just said, play. Billy and Tal and them came up with the rhythm that. Plus, those chords are minors and majors. Majors against minors, they said you couldn't do that. But they proved it all wrong, So as you sat there and got hypnotized into this, Eddie just had to just sing to herself on guitar.
He's a guy that discovered electric guitar and distortion and feedback with a vengeance. Eddie was one of those guys with superior technique that took a lot of acid and just went out from there.
The drug experience in P-Funk is integral. It's as integral to the P-Funk experience as perspiration is, because everything had to do with the higher consciousness in some way, shape, or form.
I think the acid influenced everything cross-culturally because it helped destroy traditional ways of thinking.
I think his early experiments with drugs, very much like mine, psychedelic drugs, I kind of influenced a lot of what he did and how he heard music, how he heard sounds, and how he heard how he felt inside spiritually about what he was going to do. We would be tripping on acid. I would go into what I always laugh and joke as Ooga Booga. You know, witch doctor is just babbling. And I would say something like, free your mind, your ass will follow. And to me, that's funny as hell.
Free your mind. Free your mind and your ass. Who give me my free your mind and your ass will follow.
The kingdom of heaven is within. The kingdom of heaven is within. The kingdom of heaven is within.
Parliament Funkadelic performance in the late 60s, early 70s was probably the ultimate happening, okay? It was, you didn't have to get high to be high. First of all, there was no time limit. The show could go on for 3, 4, 5 hours, okay? It was a never ending, and people would come and go, and people would dress and undress.
I've seen George do some very wild things on stage, and you know, the sheet with not a thing under that sheet. The audience would respond to this stuff. They loved it. They loved it because it was, you know, anarchy.
At that particular time, we were hearing more and more about the Funkadelic thing everywhere we went. My whole thing was, we from the James Brown School, we the tightest band, tightest, funkiest mothers you ever want to meet. You know, I mean, to be funky is one thing, but to be tight and funky, that's what we learned from James.
Who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Come on, come on. Get it. Come on. Do it. Come on.
I think Bootsy brought some of the James Brown concept of reinforcing on the one, that first beat. Doom, everything from there. Thrust. 4.
Call me Casper. Holy Ghost. Holy Ghost. Sing.
He had that rhythm. We were able to, with Bernie, myself, and Gary, and the rest of us, were able to take and do what we knew from Motown, what we seen with Sly, everybody else. We were able to take that and make a real classy jazz, funk, and then be as silly as we were with Funkadelic.
George is the doctor. He allowed me to experiment in his lab. By him letting me experiment with things, that allowed him a chance to experiment with different things, because we never knew what the end results was going to be.
Just the covers, their album covers would just get my attention. And I would read the little comic strip. And then, you know, I hear my brother listening to this crazy psychedelic space funk record, you know what I'm saying? And you know, I was hooked. It's like a comic book that jumped out. It gave you something more to do than just listen to the record.
Cosmic Slop was just, you know, it's just a mind-bending experience. I just remember looking at it and going, you know, why would someone take us there, you know?
So it was like it was drawing me in type thing. It was just like dope. I knew that it was something everybody said I should stay away from, but it felt so good.
George called me up and asked me if I wanted to do the artwork for Cosmic Slop, and I said, yeah, I'm with that. And I started working on that, and then somewhere near the tail end of the project, Clinton called me up and said, Tro, why don't you write up some liner notes? And I said, for real? The liner notes too? He said, yeah, I like your writer style. Go ahead and do something up.
Pedro Bell is a paradigm shifter. In other words, before he came along, we were sort of trapped in a certain box of language. And he opened up the possibility of empowering the way black people talk. We say, dang, I went to that party and it was late than a mug, you know? To just know that I had permission to write that.
For a cultural movement to really succeed, you just can't be revolutionary in one area. The same way hip-hop had graffiti, breakdancing, and the music. So it was a complete aesthetic revolution. Well, Pfunk had a similar kind of thing. To wear the outrageous costumes, to have the high-concept albums, to have artists like Pedro and later Overton. All these things said, this is a whole new world view.
Everybody funkin' and don't know how. They should have seen the bull when he funked the cow. He funked it so hard, they saw some smoke. He said, let's get in the bed and funk like folks, laughing at ya.
The Take It to the Stage album started to put people on notice that George and the Funkadelic were going to kick down the door sooner or later, okay? It took leaving one record company, Westbound, and going with Casablanca, Neil Bogart being the president, and one hell of a promotion, man.
We wanted to try to get them because they were signed as the Funkadelics. We couldn't get them, but there was a possibility. George said that they wanted to bring back the Parliaments. So at that time, George was one of the few have really two acts, the Parliaments and the Funkadelics, and both were with different record companies. But basically, they were the same people.
We interrupt the musical portion of our program to bring you a special broadcast from our Parliament.
Hey, baby, here's the record and dance that's sweeping the country. The Parliament's up for the downstroke. Get up for the downstroke. Everybody get up. Get up for the downstroke. Everybody get up.
First record that we put out, okay, Up for the Downstroke, started some action, but it was that second album, Chocolate City.
There's a lot of chocolate cities around. We've got Newark, we've got Gary. Somebody told me we got L.A. And we're working on Atlanta.
When Chocolate City first came out, and out of nowhere, within weeks, okay, just in the city of Washington, D.C. alone, we sold over 150,000 albums. I mean, it put the R&B community on notice that here was a group to be reckoned with. And it was different. It was different than any other type of music that was being made at the time.
And when they come to march on you, tell them to make sure they got their James Brown pass. And don't be surprised if Ali is in the White House. And Reverend Ike, Secretary of the Treasury. Richard Pryor, Minister of Education. Stevie Wonder, Secretary of Fine Arts. And Miss Aretha Franklin, the First Lady. Are you out there, CC?
What do we have here? We had Richard Pryor with a bass line.
For me, it was like a big satire. You know, it's like
You know, for blacks, we could just be and do anything, you know what I mean? Who knows whether there'll ever be a black president or whether it'll be a secretary or white, whatever. It was real when that record was out.
Long about 1975, George and them got slapped upside the head with some intergalactic mumbo jumbo. Blam! Next thing you know, it just grew, sparking an epidemic of rule-breaking, rump-quaking, funk activity that sent black music in for a factory upgrade. Thus began the era of the P-Funk.
During the making of the Mothership Connection, George had also formalized his relationship with Bootsy Collins. Bringing Bootsy in the fold also brought in some of the other James Brown guys, Fred Wesley, Maceo, and starting to use all these entities. The pot became bigger that you were cooking with.
Well, all right. Star Child.
Once we made that record, we knew we had something, and that's at the point where George said, let's pull out all the stops and put on a stage show like no other black group has ever had.
In those days, black acts didn't have a chance to form, you know, spaceships and be able to take them out on the road, you know. Neil was with it 100%.
It took my breath for a minute when I walked in, you know, and kind of looked around and saw what was going on. I know that to put something rigged off a ceiling, all of this, I said, yeah, this done went up in the millions.
Free your mind, come fly with me. It's hip on the mothership.
There was an intro to the mothership landing where Glenn Goins would take everyone to church. Glenn had the most churchified voice you have ever heard in your life. And it was a sanctified testimony from him when he would start with, I think I hear the mothership coming.
I think I see the mothership coming, Lord. I think I hear the mothership coming, yeah. I think I see the mothership coming, yeah. I think I see the mothership coming, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I see the mothership coming.
And the crowd would just get caught up in the fervor. And as the ship would come down, you could hear the roar.
When the spaceship would come down, my adrenaline would go up because the people, they were just so excited. And then, boom, it's there. And everybody's screaming, ah! You know, they just screaming all over the place. And I'm like, they're really eating this stuff up. They really they think this is a real spaceship, probably. You know, they were eating it up.
Seeing this mothership, this spaceship land on the stage, and George would come out with this long white wig and this long white robe with these glasses and this hat. I just fell out.
George was clowning with it, and he sounded more like one of my homies I went to school with. So he got me into history, to be honest with you. all of a sudden, I liked the whole idea of the pyramids, and I was connected to it for the first time, rather than it being, you know, your heritage, you know, and blah, blah. I'm not wearing no dashiki.
All right. Come on with it, y'all.
But now George broke it down and made the pyramid builders seem like just regular old brothers on the corner kicking it. What's up, dog? Yeah, you know, where your ship at? My ship's over here.
They had a story and kept topping it and topping it and topping it, introducing new characters, new narrative storylines.
Because I found out that Bugs Bunny, Mickey Mouse last forever. The ageless characters last longer. I'll have 2 or 3 of them. I'll be Mr. Wiggles, Sir Nose, Star Child, Dr. Funkenstein, and still looking for some.
Dr. Funkenstein, yeah? Preoccupied and dedicated to the preservation of the motion of hips.
P-Funk had gotten to the point where they were funking harder than reality. And they were going to start making up extra funk characters, you know, and explore funk in different incarnations of themselves.
Motor Booty Affair. Yeah.
I'm Mr. Wiggles the Worm. These are my ladies giggle and squirm. 3 bionic idiots. Your DJs for the affair, where we'll be getting down and won't be coming up for air.
It was a funk operette, and everyone had their own certain roles and characters, parts that they played.
I got strings attached to my stance. When you pull my strings, I can't do my thing like order. I got real in my stance, real in my stance. I can't do my thing underwater.
Star Child, Sir Nose were always at a battle with each other because Sir Nose refused to dance. He refused to give up the funk. And then George would come and hit Sir Nose with the bop gun, and he would start to dance.
Last night, spotlight,
When I was a kid, I loved Flashlight, didn't know what it was about. I was like, dude, George is crazy. This fool made a song about an object. You know, I never knew it was flashlight, the action, not the noun. It was the verb. He was saying, flashlight, shine some light on us in this situation we're in these United States. Help Nose find the funk. Shine some light on all the House Brothers and Brian Gumbles and everything, and the ones who's like, I'll never dance, I'll never swim. Sir Nose is the brother who can out-European a European.
Flashlight, as far as I know, is like the first of the songs with the synthesizer as the bass, and not just a sound effect. Even though Bernie played the sound effects and everything, ooh, he actually played the dun 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 dun. He could bend it. He's such keen with it that he could bend the notes and do all of the things that, you know, bass player could do with strings, and then some.
No 2 bars are the same. Everybody's soloing, enjoying himself, playing with the love of the one, vibing off each other. Like, ooh, you did that. Hold up. Right when you go, oh, I lay me down to sleep, I'm gonna go on the keyboards behind it, and it's gonna set your off.
What P-Funk did was bring about this tribal energy, and you want to say it had something to do with, you know, some ancient tribal rites and primitive things, but it was anything but primitive. It was postmodern tribalism in which everybody is a part of this ritual, and everybody is kind of self-expressive in it in their own way that doesn't have to be synchronous with everyone else.
But by this time, Parliament and Funkadelic was just names. Warner just signed myself as a producer in a name, and so did Casablanca. I mean, you could tell they was the same people by the names of the album, just like Motown. And I got it from Motown. It was basically the same musicians and the same background singers on everybody's record. It was just a different start. And when I did my records, I just let different people be dominant on the creating of this music.
It was like a family that was growing rapidly. Before we could make one record deal, he was already giving us 2 other artists. George's work ethic is unbelievable. George works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
It was just a party. We'd go in and everybody would just cut songs and participate.
You sleep in the studio 4, 5 days, 6 days in a row. On the floor, in the carpet somewhere.
I remember George, there was this horrible smell. Horrible smell. And I remember George saying that he wasn't going to take a bath until he finished the Bride's album. And I guess the rest of the P-Funk members decided they weren't going to take one either. And after a while, you got kind of used to it. Took a while, but we got used to it.
Man, we ain't worried about what it smell like, man. We trying to work.
I think it's probably where they got the name P-Funk. Officially, I think so, personally.
Ready or not, here we come. Getting down on the one which we believe in. Here's my chance to dance my way out of my constriction.
George had a number of acts signed in the period, say, 77, 78, all of which became touring entities and or integral parts of the band. So he had deals at Warner Brothers, Casablanca, Arista, Atlantic, 4 or 5 different labels.
George told me, he says, I want to build an empire just like Berry Gordy had, just like Motown.
We call it the Parlor Funkadelic mint thing, one word. P-Funk Empire.
Make mine the P-Funk. I want my funk cut. Make my funk the P-Funk, y'all.
I had to get in the music business to appreciate what a Mac move it was when George sat on the Funkadelic album cover with the flashlight here from Parliament and the One Nation of Groove flag behind him and the bop gun here with a little spliff in his mouth. He was just letting the crowd know this is all us, so don't matter where you get it, whether you get it from Casablanca, whether you get it from Warner Brothers, or whether you get it from Atlantic, it's us.
There it is, y'all. George is at the top of his game. Got 11 different groups signed to Buku labels. That means cash money rolling in. Then the big deal, George getting his own label, Uncle Jam Records. About to get off in that Berry Gordy type structure. Seem like everybody in the business wants a piece of the funk.
Finally at this point in his career where this is finally beginning to happen, where he has his own label.
Well, 2 things happened simultaneously with this that were events above and beyond the control of George. One was that Casablanca Records got sold to Polygram. The other was that George had a huge falling out with Warner Brothers over the artwork for the electric spanking of War Babies. There was a women's rights group at the time called Women Against Violence who were really upset about different album art. So all of a sudden, the electric spanking of War Babies turned into a censored album cover. On an artistic freedom level, created a lot of bad blood between George and Warner Brothers.
The funk started falling apart in 1980. We had a deal with Warner Brother Records to deliver an album. George wanted to give them 2 albums. They didn't want to accept 2 albums because they look at the cost perspective of it. So in the interim, not wanting to accept it, they basically lost interest because they saw the headache that they were up against. So they started backing off slowly but surely. And when they cut the funds off, of course, then that really threw us into a tizzy then, because now, man, we wheeling and dealing. We got this happening, we got that. We got the road thing happening. You're spending money here. You got all these people you're taking care of. I mean, it was a circus. I mean, it was a real circus.
In the meantime, George decides to funk Warner Brothers and take his Uncle Jam label to CBS. Roger Troutman of Zapp was going solo, and he was going to start the label off with a bang.
He was supposed to have been on Uncle Jam, my label. Bob Krasnoff of Warner Brothers talked him into borrowing the tapes one day and tricked him into selling them to him, which CBS had paid for.
So then Uncle Jam Records didn't have its guiding light, so to speak.
We started running into real serious problems. So then people started backing off, and as one company backed off, which was Warner Brothers at first, and then Columbia started backing off, and then Casablanca started backing off, you see. And then it was like a wave then, see. I mean, eventually it just choked us. It choked us. I mean, it was sad because within a year or 2 years, it was just like the doors were closed.
It seemed as though the Uncle Jam label put fear in everybody that we was going to start our own Motown, and I really, that's my belief, and it could be wrong, but I don't think the industry never want another Motown.
I mean, everybody had walked away. Lawyers had walked away. The band was falling apart. I mean, they had hit rock bottom. I mean, rock bottom. It was a really tough time.
The business got very confused. There was a lot of abuse, a lot of substance abuse, and no one cared what the hell was going on. The only people who cared were those of us at the low end, the band and crew, who weren't getting paid. And we were watching people walk away with fistfuls of money. And Jerome Braley and Glenn Goins left and started their mutiny on the mothership period. The original Parliaments got very fed up with being pushed to the side. They, rightly so, felt that they were being pushed out of the limelight and being pushed away from the creative process.
The vibe had shifted, political climate was different, and all of a sudden, instead of P-Funk becoming this source of joy, it became kind of unraveled.
Don't play no funeral march yet, damn it. Like George said, funk don't go nowhere. It's forever coming.
That was the hardest thing, it seemed like to me, for most artists, to be able to put their feet back on the ground. So when it comes time for me to take a time to sit down, I did it graciously. I went fishing, got in trouble, did all things that I would do if I wasn't out on the road. And at the same time, still made music.
He came back. 1982, smash. Atomic Dog.
When they did Atomic Dog, it's kind of like an anthem. You know what I'm saying? It's like it became a neighborhood anthem instantly.
He's creative. I mean, you cannot get away from around that. He knows how to make music.
While George Clinton and his P-Funk All-Stars continued to funk through the 80s and beyond, the P-Funk legacy inspired a long list of musicians. Prince, Barcades, Gap Band. I mean, we ain't got enough time to say how many people was inspired. The list is too long.
George gave me a lot of hope. Every record, I mean, everything he did, he gave me a lot of hope.
She's a very kinky girl, the kind you don't take home to mother. She will never let your spirits down.
What they they were doing definitely motivated me. It definitely colored some of my music around, say, well, how would George approach this? You know, and I think a lot of us do that.
We got his number and we called him. And we said, you know, we're this band from Hollywood called the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and we're wondering, would you produce our next record? And he was like, why don't you send me a tape and come pay me a visit?
He gave us the freedom to just do what we wanted to do. He didn't try to change us. He didn't try to make us more palatable for the radio or for anything else.
He would help us write, you know, he would write vocal parts for us, and, you know, he wasn't all uptight about, you know, getting writer's credit or anything like that. He was like, you know, as a producer, I'm gonna like throw ideas at you, and if you like them, take them, because, you know, someone else probably gave them to me along the way.
Now, we got generations of clones rising up to testify to the everlasting power of the P-Funk. We don't mind y'all rising up, but rise a little bit away from it, brother, if you don't mind. You know what I'm saying? She's a big freak, and the big freak of the week. She's a disco-rocking mama, at the disco's where you find
87 to 93 was like the sampling heyday.
Get up, get down. 911 is joking your town.
That was when rap groups were taking very recognizable pieces of classic funk tracks and putting them in hits.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, tell me, mirror, what is wrong? Can it be my De La clothes, or is it just my De La song?
De La Soul was a cute, off-the-wall group until they looped Knee Deep by Funkadelic, and that got them over the hump into pop radio.
Just me, myself, and I.
There was just so many arrangements going on within the song. It was like, it wasn't conventional at all. I mean, and that's something that we as rappers wanted to apply to ourselves. So even beyond just rapping, just being a listener of it and just being a true fan of just things that didn't follow the norm, you know, Parliament and Funkadelic was just the kings of that. Yeah. You want to talk about hip-hop and P-Funk. Bernie was the first one doing them gangster string lines that became so known for the Ghetto Boys, the real hard hip-hop artists who got the sinister strings that sound like the world's coming to an end, like in Murder Was the Case that they gave me.
Gangsters love Parliament and Funkadelic. They love it.
What all the homies saying? Hell yeah.
Let Me Ride, which won a Grammy, by the way, was one of the most powerful songs in terms of showing what P-Funk represents. They loop in all the Mothership Connection and Bernie Worrell's keyboard work. And then they have the video which shows footage of Glenn Goins singing and bringing the mothership down. And that's what P-Funk has evolved into.
People say, yo, Humpty, you're really funny looking. That's all right, because I get things cooking.
I always felt like George and Bootsy, even though they weren't my biological fathers, they were the fathers of my whole thought process.
Check it out. First I limped to the side like my legs was broken. Shaking and twitching, kinda like I was smoking. Crazy, whack, funky. People say you look like MC Hammer on crack, Humpty.
Every rap group that's out there all acknowledge that George is one of the fathers of that genre of music, all right? George realized it so much that he put out a couple CDs of nothing but samples. He wanted people to do it because he was going to get royalties.
I know if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't do hip-hop as raw as I do it.
1993, much more vibes. Ice Cube coming with the half. It's not just me, deep Jeep full of small.
I wouldn't know that it's cool for you to be who you are and say what you feel and do it how you want to do it. It's cool to do it like that. I learned that from George Clinton and Funkadelic more than anybody else in the music business.
In 1997, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame finally acknowledged what musicians and fans had known all along. Parliament Funkadelic was inducted along with Crosby, Stills, and that dude Nash, some Bee Gees, and Joni Mitchell.
I'm Jerome Bigfoot Braley, drummer and co-author of Tear the Roof Off the Sucker.
Hi, my name is Gary Scheider.
It's been a long time coming, but then again, not so long. My name is Bernie Worrell. Thank you.
I'd just like to say, first of all, thanks to George Clinton, you know, for picking up on the youth of the world as we was coming up.
I'd like to thank all the people that all of these people have thanked already. But most of all, I'd like to thank all of them twice as much as they've been thanked before. I'd like to thank all the other members of the band that's not here, which is about 2 times as many.
There's a party in the city where Pfunk is the way of life. Everybody getting funky.
You're always succeeding as long as you're doing it. To me, the pursuit is happy to me. If I ever catch happy, I'd probably be bored as hell. The pursuit of doing what I like doing is the reward.
If you're a true Funketeer out there, you never just turn P-Funk off. You never jump out of a car, cloop. You fade P-Funk down if you're in a hurry.